Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Blue Feathered Stories. I'm your hostess, Blue Thunderbird Woman. Sometimes I forget my name, also known as Carol. Welcome to our beautiful episode today, and we have another amazing guest that's joining us, and her name is Molly. And Molly has had, one of the most, I would say, incredible, challenging life journeys of all the people that I know. And she has made the most amazing strides, and she has come to a place where now is the time to share her gifts and her love with humanity and all sentient beings, whether it be standing tall ones or the animal spirits or anything and everything. And so I'm super excited to have a beautiful, intimate conversation with Molly today. And it is our hope that there will be some kind of message within this conversation that opens you up, inspires you, helps you to expand your heart so that we can love each other completely without conditions. And so, without further ado, Molly, welcome into this sacred, brave space today. Thank you for
Hi,
being
Carol.
here. Hi.
I'm
So,
so excited. I cannot contain myself. Let's just start off with a cackle.
sure, we both like to cackle. It's all good. We
Yes,
could
we do.
probably get everybody else cackling with us too. So, it's contagious. Yeah. So actually, as we're speaking right now, our listeners cannot see where you are, but you are in situated in a beautiful forest, leaning up against a grandfather stone, the stone people. You have one of your beautiful four-legged furry friends beside you. You're, I think, sitting on a bed of moss,
Mhm.
and I think it's just amazing that that you're here in this space right now, in this sacred space, and there's barely any wind. It's quite quiet and peaceful, and yeah. So why don't we start there? What is the? I know the answer to this, but our viewers and our listeners don't. Like, what is that number one place where you find the ultimate peace?
The lake.
The lake. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I can go into the forest because I pretty much live in the forest here. I can go into the forest anytime. Well, yes, I live in the forest, so I am in the forest, right? But there's something about coming to the lake and sitting by the water. And I can enter because it takes me 20 minutes to get where I sit, and I can enter agitated and upset and just enough fluff, and it doesn't take long before I'm calm and I know that I'm gonna be okay. Like every time I come here, I know I'm gonna be
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
lifeline almost, I guess.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. And you've always been quite connected to the land, haven't you? Like, would you say growing up that was something that you had immediately, or is it something that you found along the way through your healing journey?
I've always been connected. My family liked to be outdoors, camping, and I had uncles that we went four-wheeling with a lot in our closest provincial forest. But it was really, I'd say after I left the church when I was 33, I didn't have a vehicle. I had a dying dog, a 4-year-old dog, and then I got Sam as a puppy. He was 15 weeks, but he was a bit of a rescue. And I was really important for me for Samuel and my dying dog Abby to meet each other for whatever reason. But it's totally stressful. But it was important for Abby to meet whoever was coming into my life. So I had an uncontrollable puppy. I had a dying dog, and we started walking because I didn't have a vehicle, so I couldn't really exercise him. I didn't have I don't know why I didn't bike, but I started walking, and then I put down Abby, or like she died, I guess. I don't like the word put down, but I had like she just got really, really, really sick. So about 3 weeks after I got Sam, then you know she moved on, and we walked and we walked and we walked, and I lived where I had access to the pasture land, and I had access to a forest that was across the highway from me, where there were trails cut into there. And we walked and we walked and we walked, and that's sort of how I dealt with my grief. And I discovered my love for wildflowers. Well, I always loved wildflowers, right? And I got a really good camera, I think, around that time. And I immersed myself into flower identification. And it turns out I started knowing, I knew what a daisy was, and I knew what a brown-eyed Susan was. I was an avid gardener. I love to garden. I love perennials, but anything wild, I didn't know anything, right? So I started taking pictures, and I bought myself a flower identification book, and I'd go sit beside this flower, that flower, and I'd take pictures, and I'd sit there with my book until I found it. And then that led me to get a dehydrator at some point. And well, that's a whole nother story.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's okay. We can go there. So what did you start doing with your dehydrator?
Well, okay, so I moved on from wildflowers, and then this all started, my whole healing journey started when my aunt sent me a link to a summit. I think it was called Origin. And I had never heard any of this information, like that babies need to be born via the birth canal, because like there's pressure, and I don't know what they all need, if they need the mucus, or they need that in order to be really healthy, right? If you're born by C-section, it's you have a difficult start to life, and it's just not natural, right? And they talked about the food, and they talked about the water, and they talked about toxins and chemicals. And I was eating a standard American diet of like, I was incredibly dysfunctional. So like Pepsi, chips, donuts. I had incredible cravings. Use typical laundry detergent, the soap. Like I was just like a typical, what I would call a typical North American person, right? So she
Yeah.
sent me this summit series, and it, I was like, oh, I've never heard of any of this stuff before. And I like started writing down names of all the speakers that I really resonated with, and I went onto their website, and that started me on like a few years worth of just going down rabbit holes and going down rabbit holes, and I explored like everything I could, and eventually there were enough threads that I could start figuring out what was truth. So if there was like one, because it all was just craziness to me, right? Like why would I want to use natural laundry detergent? Like why this, why that? So I'd come across some really crazy things. And if there was only one person talking about a crazy thing, then I just sort of let that go, right? But if there was five people talking about crazy things, I thought, okay, well, it's worth exploring. And I felt like absolute shit, right? I don't know if I was already losing weight or not. I doubt it. So I was like 300 pounds. I could hardly walk because my joints were aching. My back hurt so bad. I couldn't sit. I couldn't lie. I couldn't walk. It was just bad, right?
Yeah.
So that happened probably before the wildflower things happened, and then so I started with wildflowers, and then in all this research I probably came across like you can actually eat some flowers. I'm like, holy shit, you can like eat stuff that you find in the ditch. There's weeds you can eat. Like I just pulled them out. Like weeds, you hate weeds. You're supposed to
Yeah.
spray your
Yeah.
dandelions. Like your gardens are supposed to be spotless, otherwise there's like shame and guilt. I'm like, oh, that's like just like it's just like fireworks going off in my brain. So I bought myself a small dehydrator, and I started with edible weeds and wildflowers, just around my house.
And I will share with our listeners that I remember sort of, I'm not sure when I came into your life, but there was a time where you spent a lot of time photographing the wilderness and starting to forage and stuff. And I just remember your photos were just, and they still are, spectacular, the way in which you're able to capture the essence of the plants. And I would say that maybe you realized it or maybe you didn't realize it, but you were already connecting to the spirit of those plants at that
Mm.
time,
No,
really,
I didn't have,
you know.
you came into my life when my mom died, and that was, I think, 7 years ago. I actually don't know. So
Mhm.
that was just after I had left the church, like within a couple of years of me leaving the church. So I had no concept. You scared the shit out of me. You literally just scared the bejeebers out of me. So no concept of plant spirits or animal spirits. I'm like, oh geez. But it
Yeah,
was meant to be.
yeah, it's all good. But I guess what I'm saying is, even though you may not have had a vocabulary for it, the
Yeah.
respect that you had for the land and the respect for the plants and the wonderment, that already establishes a relationship with those beings, right? Those
Yes,
are the plant
absolutely.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. They
So I think
spoke to
whether
me.
or
I
not
just
you
don't
had a
know.
name for it or whether or not you had a concept of it in a way, but you were already creating that relationship with them.
Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing about all of this is you don't need to have a vocabulary.
Exactly.
Me and a friend have been talking a lot about all sorts of things lately, and he's realizing, like, I'm not analytical like that, but he's realizing how limited the English language is,
Mm-hmm.
how we don't have words for a lot of stuff, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
actually been done that way very deliberately to just sort of keep us small and boxed in. But yeah, we don't have words for a lot of our human experience here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I remember reading a long time ago that the English language was a language in which was created for a sole purpose of commerce.
Yeah,
So it
yeah, that
really
would make
doesn't
sense.
have the words to express the things that we are, wanting to express. And the French language was always known as the language of love. And so there are so many words to express a certain particular thing in French. And so you can really get the nuances. And then there are other types of languages where, and I think in the indigenous languages, there's like 20 meanings to one phonetic sound, like, you know, and then we can totally get into light language, which is
Hmm.
really channeling our Star Nations language, which has no logical sense to our brains and our minds whatsoever. And yet, from a heart space, we can completely feel the vibrational frequencies of that. And we really probably don't even grasp the depth of being able to speak the light language or even write it or whatever. It's all based on vibrational frequencies. So that's just a whole other thing in itself. So, for the purpose of our listeners, I know that you don't necessarily identify with these stories anymore, but I think for them it's important to sort of have a context of, well, what has Molly gone through in her journey? Like, what are some of the big pivotal experiences you've already mentioned? Your dog transitioning. You already mentioned speaking about your mom, but there have been other your mom transitioning as well, but there have been other pivotal moments in your life, and I think if we can go back to your youth for a few moments, if you don't mind sharing some of those things that you have experienced, that you have been challenged with, and that you are still today healing. Like, I think it's important for us to understand that we spend a good portion of our life having experiences, and some of them are traumatic. And then we are here to really learn the lessons of that to help us propel in our purpose in life.
Well, we're going to talk about Donna Marie.
Okay,
I've
let's do
I
that.
I recently changed my name to Molly from Donna Marie because I'm a different person now. Donna Marie went through all the trauma and just lived such a difficult life full of suffering and heartache. And I just wanted to, I guess, not close the door on that, but just embrace a new way of being. And that's, it was important to me to let go of the name Donna Marie. I love that name. It's just, I don't resonate with it anymore. So, yes, let's talk about some of Donna Marie's experiences. Well, I was born into the Mennonite community. Parents who I mean, I say that they shouldn't have been parents. I know that they loved me the best that they could. And I recognize that I chose them to teach me very specific lessons. I think I was okay for the first few years of my life. I was the first grandchild on both sides, so I know that I was doted on, and I have lots of aunts and uncles. So I was loved that way, right? I think as soon as my sister came along, I think 3 years, she's 3 years younger than me. My mom, that was just too much for my mom. And things just went downhill from there. So I would have been 3. And then when I turned 5, uh, I was held down in the basement of my church by some older boys. And I think that was a very pivotal moment in my life that really started this trajectory of pain and suffering and trauma and just being silent and different. Like I imagine that I just felt different. I have no idea. No idea, right? I'm just thinking. So
Mhm.
then fast forward when I was 14 and my younger sister, so I had two sisters and a younger brother at this point, so there was 4 of us. Youngest sister was 10. She got leukemia. By this point in my life, I was already very closed up. I was bullied in school because I was the tallest girl, taller than my teachers. I'd been taller than my teachers for many years already. I was bullied. Church and the Christian faith made absolutely no sense to me, but yet that's all I knew. It didn't, if that's all I knew, that wasn't my truth. But somehow it just, I don't even know how to describe it. I know people who have gone through the same experience as me will know exactly what I'm talking about, but I don't really have the words to verbalize it, right? So
Yeah.
she got sick. She ended up going to the children's hospital, and I'm not sure how long she was in the hospital for, but my parents had to literally drag me there. At this point, I'd gone through a few different traumas. I had a baby sister who was brought to term, and then, but they knew that she was going to die because she didn't have a skull. So that happened when I was about grade 3. My grandma died about that same time. And then when my younger brother was born a couple years later, I was just convinced that he was going to die. And I was 12. Like that's old enough to understand birth and
Yeah.
death. But I was just convinced that he was going to die, even though the pregnancy, as far as I know, was healthy and my mom was healthy and there was no complications. And I ended up staying home from school for a whole week
Mm.
because of stress and anxiety at 12. And I'd never heard the word anxiety. I'd never heard the word stress. I didn't have a clue. And even though I don't have any like physical memories of this, I don't have any recollections of it at all. I imagine that there was no help for me from my parents.
Mm.
I don't know what they thought. We've never talked about it once, but
Mhm.
I don't know what they thought, but there would have been no support just from what's about to come, right? So then imagine like, so then my little sister died, or like she ended up dying. I found out she was gonna die the night before I started high school, and I changed schools. So the schools only went up to grade 9 at that point. So that was in a little town. I had not good experiences. I was enrolled in a private Christian school. So I was gonna change schools in a different town. I found out she was gonna die the night before I started high school. So uh just not a good scenario. And then she died about 2 weeks later. So that's how I started off high school. So blessed to have gone to that school. It was a really small school at that point with, I mean, I don't know that the teachers were really good or anything, but it's just like the bullying stopped. The most amazing music teacher. And I was really big into music. I played by ear. I was quite talented and I loved music. I was taking piano lessons since I was little. So that's what got me through high school was the piano lessons. I would practice for hours and hours and hours. And I was in the praise band and I was in the chamber choir and I was in the general choir. I joined whatever I could and the things I auditioned for I got into, right? So I was okay. And that's what fed my soul at that time and that's what got me through. And just that I was so blessed. But I lost my friends because I just closed off. There was no help for me. I was drugged to go to the funeral. I was drugged to go to her viewing. They made me go. I was drugged to go to the funeral. They made me go. And I made it through high school, kind of, sort of. They made me go. Eventually, they made me go to a Christian counselor in my school because my principal called in my dad and said, you know, your daughter's going to fail school if you don't do something. And I'm intelligent, like not highly intelligent, but I'm intelligent.
Hmm.
And so they got me tutors. They forced me to go see this counselor who just told me, well, you're not praying hard enough.
Hmm.
Um, at this point in time in my church, they didn't particularly believe in mental illness. No, let's just put it as it is. They did not believe in mental illness. There was no such thing as mental illness.
Hmm.
So I went to the doctor, went to my family doctor by myself. I'm not sure how this all transpired. I know I went to the doctor by myself. I told her what was happening, and she said, "Well, you know, you're struggling with depression." Well, it doesn't give such a thing as depression. I'm lazy. I'm not praying hard enough, and I'm lazy. Like that's all this is. Then she gives me a sample pack of pills that I took home, probably didn't tell anyone about, and stuck in my drawer. As 18 years old, I'm 18 years old, you know, just so I did graduate. But as soon as I graduated, then the music stopped, right? There was no more
That
aspect
really,
of my life to keep me going, like avenue of or flow or whatever. It just all went seriously downhill from there. I got hooked up with Recovery of Hope, which was a counselor in Winnipeg. He was quite helpful in just it was a Mennonite organization, I think, but they were more progressive, right? So they, you know, I learned a lot of things for the first time, I imagine. And then when I was about to turn 20, I stayed in bed one week for a whole week and didn't get out of bed. And I think that's probably when my counselor told my parents, you know, this is out of control, something needs to be done. So I landed up in the psych ward for the first time, and I turned 20 in the psych ward in Winkler, which is an hour and a half away from where I live. So like just away from everyone and everything. I ended up with a psychiatrist that I had a personality conflict with, and like being put on medication, traumatizing. Let's just, you know, traumatizing.
yeah. Was there a time where you were on like how many medications? Like sleeping pills, antidepressants, like what else? Like,
Sleeping pills, antidepressants, antipsychotic, anti-anxiety, anti-inflammatories, whatever I had. You know, if I had acid reflux, they'd give me a pill for acid reflux.
oh yes, yeah,
I was my joints were aching so bad they gave me anti-inflammatories that they give for people with arthritis, right?
yeah,
Um, you know, if I had IBS, so they'd give me something for IBS. It's just whatever I had. You know,
yeah.
I'm still sometimes coming across people who are talking about their symptoms, and they're describing something that I had that I didn't even know was a symptom because I didn't have words to put the bodily sensations that I was having because they were just so far out there. I don't
Hmm.
know what the hell was happening to me. It was bad. It was so, so bad. Like I was just literally being poisoned by this
Yeah,
toxic shit. I mean, I see that now, right?
yeah,
But at 20 years old, 22, 25, I was raised that the doctors know best.
yeah,
They have your best interest at heart. They've been through years and years of training. So you just blindly do what they
yeah.
tell you to do, and they give you pills, and that's it. So yeah, there
You
was
were a
never once.
walking, you were a walking cocktail.
I was a walking pharmacy for
Yeah.
almost 15 years of my life. Yeah. And then I
Okay.
was on birth control off and on. So, I mean, that's a whole nother horror story.
Hmm.
And there's never talk about diet. There's never talk about exercise. Nothing. It's just like, oh, well, I'm experiencing this symptom today. Okay, well, here's another prescription. Oh, I'm experiencing okay, well, here's another prescription.
Hmm.
It just blows my mind now. Now that I know what I know, it just blows my mind.
So at what point then did you find yourself unlearning and detoxifying from all of these, unlearning from what society believes is normal. You go to the doctor, they have all the answers, they're there to help you heal. But in actual fact, we do know that they are helpful in some cases. We got a broken leg, you know what? They're good for that. But in a lot of cases, there's a lot of prescriptions that are being prescribed, obviously. So at what point then did you sort of, and maybe it wasn't a point, maybe it's just a gradual thing, but what point did you start to question the validity of what was actually taking place in the medications, and like what was your steps towards unlearning and detoxifying from these pharmaceutical drugs?
I tried my last hospitalization at 30, and I say tried because I went in first when I was 20, and then I was hospitalized off and on and in CSUs for the next 10 years. And during that time, it was very evident that the red tape was just growing and growing, and they didn't treat us like they used to. Like, that was a private hospital, I think. Like, I didn't have to pay to go there, but it was still somewhat private. And the care that I got there at first, even though I was completely dysfunctional and like nonverbal, it was still amazing. Like, they spent so much time with me, and the nurses there, they just cared so deeply. And over the 10 years, that care just decreased and decreased until finally it was more just, they were just observing what I was doing, and all their time was being taken up by writing about what they saw me doing instead of actually interacting with me. So it was like I turned 30, like, fuck this shit. This is not helping. I actually want to be helped. This is not helping. So I discharged myself after I think a day or something. And then I was just lost, just completely lost. And so this Origin Summit came into my life around the same time that I went back to the church. So I'd left the church as soon as my parents couldn't make me, like when I turned 20 to go to the psych ward. I stopped church. But I went back to the church, and it's incredibly odd. It's an incredibly odd choice for me to make, but I formed a really deep, intimate relationship with Jesus, and I was exploring the mystical side of Christianity, and it was beautiful, and I felt so deeply connected, and like I was deeply drawn to the contemplative mystics and that sort of thing, right? So I was starting, I guess, to nourish my soul and my spirit for the first time ever, and I was a leader of a youth group and a college and career women's group, and that was my sole passion. I found out I was all about love. Love was really important to me. And I'm an incredibly curious person. So even in the hospital, I would I love psychology. I found I love psychology. So like I would just take deep dives into everything, and just I was already learning in the hospital, but that was like Western medicine psychology, right? So I left the hospital, that wasn't working. The Origin Summit came into my life. So that's when I really started between the Origin thing and going back to the church and forming this really deep connection with Jesus. I started to learn all sorts of things. And after watching that summit, I started shifting my diet, and I learned that we need water to survive. So I I found a formula that goes on body weight. So it wasn't just you need to drink 8 cups of water. It's like how much do you weigh? So I weighed 300 pounds. So I like figured out how many ounces that was, and then I figured out how many hours a day I was usually awake. And then I broke it down into 15-minute increments, and I figured out how many sips of water I needed to take every 15 minutes to get that amount of water in my body, because I hated water. I didn't drink water. I drank juice and I drank pop.
Mm.
I didn't drink water. I just felt horrible. Like it just tasted gross. But I knew that I needed to drink water. So like I set my timer for every 15 minutes, and for however many weeks I did that, every 15 minutes I'd take my 3 sips of water to get my however many. I think I was, I think I needed to drink 12 cups of water for being 300 pounds. Well, holy shit, man, that's a lot of water for someone who doesn't like water, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But throughout this whole journey, I've never calorie counted. I've never like really set out to lose weight. I've never deprived myself. I just started by making slow changes. I I ate the same things I always ate, but I ate a little bit more vegetables and I ate more water, you know. And then when I really started learning about sugar, then instead of eating so much sugar, I started making I ate copious amounts of fruit. I could have cleaned out fruit orchards. So like I know I now I substituted one sugar for another sugar, but I was getting a whole lot more minerals and nutrients and fiber from the fruit, right? And then I found out about gluten, and I was really hardcore about that. I pretty much just cut gluten out. That wasn't a gradual thing. And I am someone who is incredibly hardcore, but I'm also someone who is like just my healing journey has been on a snail's pace. I've spent most of my life with my wheels just spinning, and every once in a while I'd like get a bit of traction and move ahead, and then my wheels would just spin for a long time. So okay, getting back to the med thing, so this would have happened around the same time. You know what, actually I think it was probably more around 36. I was in the church for 3 years, and that was also the time where I was first introduced to energy medicine. I will not be able to remember the name of the therapy I went to. It was from a Christian therapist. It involved talking to a stuffed animal sitting on a pillow across from me. I'm like, that was so hard.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
like we pretend this animal is my mom. Like, you want me to do what?
Yeah.
Like, okay then. But and we sat on the floor with a candle. That was another really strange thing for me to like sit on the floor
Mhm.
with a candle talking to a teddy bear. Started I knew that at this point I knew that the meds at 36, the meds were not good for me,
Yeah.
you know, and I spent a long time, weeks researching how do I come off of these meds.
Mhm. And what was the first
And
one that you released?
oh, I went cold turkey on all of them except my sleeping pills. I decided I was going to go cold turkey. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my doctor. I didn't tell I don't think I told a single person. So, but not my sleeping pills because I knew that, that would just I would end up killing myself because yeah. So, I spent a week, and I've never really heard of anyone talk about this sort of thing before, but I spent a week with my brain. It felt like there was electricity going through my brain, like zapping it or like voltage or something. It was the worst. It was just the worst.
Right.
And then I was on my sleeping pills yet for quite a few years. I wonder if I was still on my sleeping pills when I met you. I'm not sure.
You were, and I remember you were sanding them down
Yeah.
slowly to reduce
Yeah,
them.
that's what
Yes.
I did
Yeah.
with my sleeping pills. So I like tiny little pill. I'd take a piece of sandpaper and I'd do like one brush for
Mhm.
like a week, and then I'd try two brushes, and
Yeah.
then I'd try three brushes. Oh, that was too much. Then I'd have to go to two. Like
Yeah.
that, I have no words. I
Yeah.
have no words.
Yeah.
And it's not like I was sleeping well on the sleeping pills. I wasn't.
Hmm.
But the withdrawal symptoms from not taking them was worse than not really sleeping, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. So you've actually been off the sleeping pills now for, well, a number of years, I would say, more than five.
Oh yeah, I think mom died around, well, Sam turned 7 and mom has met Sam. So I'm thinking that mom died 6 years ago and we got in contact like a couple of months after she died.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was during that time at some point you got off of them because I remember
Yeah, so
you
I guess,
were,
oh yeah, it actually hasn't been all that long yet, has it?
well, actually, the first, there's different ways of viewing that. 5 years is a long time.
I don't
You
think
know?
it's a long time because I do feel like I am. I mean, no, I know I'm healing, and you have worked on my brain and releasing the toxins, and so has another healer here that like does work like that. But I still feel like I'm dealing with like probably, well, I'm probably still dealing with organ damage and brain damage, and like my adrenals are just totally fucked up, and like I know that I'm still
Yeah.
dealing with the residuals, even though yeah, I can feel it. I'm not well, right? So I can
Yeah.
feel it. So another bunny trail that makes me so excited. So I never thought I would be able to heal from any of this stuff until um last fall. Someone asked me if I knew anything about Joe Dispenza. I'm like, well, I've heard of him, but his information is just like 25 stories higher than my comprehension. It's like I've heard about him. I've been in the biohacking community. I have no money for that stuff, but it fascinates me.
Mm.
And so like people in the biohacking community and who anyone who is hardcore about their health keeps talking about Joe Dispenza, and I'm like, I just don't get him. I just whatever, I'm just not there. So she asked me about him, like, well, I know who he is, but I've never been able to understand a word he's saying. But I decided to give it another go, and I understood it. I'm like, a lot of it, like enough to like understand his concepts. And it's like I was so excited because I found out for the first time ever in my life that I can heal everything and I can instantaneously heal everything. I don't know how, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but like it's a possibility, and that just gave me so much hope for all sorts of things. It's like I might actually be able to have a healthy, functional body at some point yet. And I'm 44 years old already.
So you've recently been you're still obviously, working through your shadows and you've come a long way. There's been other kinds of experiences that have um, brought you further along your journey. And you recently had, one of the things that you had shared with me a while back was, I have to get to sleep. I need sleep. My body needs to repair. I've been on this fight or flight for so long. I'm exhausted. I need sleep. And it's been what? You introduced something new to your body.
Yes. A couple months before this, I had made up my mind to just say yes. I am just saying yes to whatever opportunity comes my way. So yeah, she ordered me a supplement called Glow from Trinont. With Glow, I lay in my tent and I was just happy as a pig in shit. I'm just laying there and laying there and laying there. The only thing I felt was a little bit of shame for not being able to actually move and get out of bed. But other than that, it was just happiness. So I spent a few mornings like that before I talked to you again about dosing. And I just spent those mornings just welcoming Glow into my body. And I really felt like I was doing healing on a cellular level for the first time in my life. Like I understood that concept finally, and I was going deep into my cells and just releasing toxins and inviting Glow in. And it was a very interesting few mornings. And I talked to Carol, and she said, oh well, I only take 1 tablespoon. Have you asked your body? I'm like, oh no, I haven't asked my body. So I asked my body, and it's like, yes, please take 1 tablespoon and take it at 7:30. Okay, I have been sleeping like for the first time in my life probably. And it's just amazing. I'm having I have so much more energy. I woke up 2 mornings ago and I was literally glowing. I was literally glowing. It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, it has a apropos name, Glow, because it honestly feels like it's just doing the work inside the body and it's showing itself on the external body,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether it be your skin or your nails or your hair or whatever. And for some people, sleep is something that they experience immediately, and for others, physiology, it doesn't do anything for their sleep, you know.
Yeah.
So we always have to be aware of there's not one body the same. And so it's really important actually to check in with our own bodies and have that conversation like, is this good for me and how much should I be taking, and that kind of thing. But a lot of people are just not connected to their bodies whatsoever. They don't even know that they can do that.
So now that I've been sleeping off and on, but much better for 2 months now. And I have way more energy and I have way more emotion regulation. And actually, all sorts of things have been clicking into place very specifically the last 2 weeks. So I'm experiencing what healthy sleep does to a body. And it's so important to sleep because that's when we're healing our bodies, but that's also when we heal our minds and we refresh our batteries and we connect with spirit, and it's so necessary. So like my life and the synchronicities and the doors that are opening now that I have started to sleep, it's like I just want to keep sleeping for the rest of my life. Like I don't ever want to go back to insomnia because amazing things are happening now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. And I think you kind of nailed it too. There are a lot of people who are dealing with whether it's a severe case of insomnia or whether it's a case of the occasional not being able to sleep or not having, they sleep, but it's not deep. And we don't really cannot grasp the full impact of that lack of sleep, how it wreaks havoc on our being. And it isn't until it gets to a point that it's severe that all of these symptoms and things really start to be pronounced. And even at that point, if we go and talk to our medical doctors, they will tend to prescribe you a sleeping pill.
Which is only supposed to be used for short term. They'll tell
Yeah,
you that.
yeah.
They
Not
tell you
years
it's
and years
only
and
for it's
years.
only like a PRN, I think that's what they call, like use as needed.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
sparingly, but yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But we just don't realize how that lack of sleep, you know, and even not enough water are two things that if we don't have, we will we will attract dis-ease in our bodies, you know.
Yeah, and now we have these millions and millions, if not billions of people not sleeping well,
Yeah,
eating shit, taking medication, and and life is just really hard and really dark for
yeah, yeah,
most.
yeah. It's a big step. I know for me, my personal experience with Glow is the first night I slept. I've been dealing with insomnia for 20 years. You know, would I say it was severe? No, I mean, because I still got sleep, but just not enough. Not that restful sleep.
Yeah.
And I do find that spirit likes to talk to me a lot in the middle of the night, and it's like, you know what? Like I need my rest. Like stop it.
Yeah.
So, but in any case, yeah, and actually, this is coming to me now that I need to share. But my insomnia started when a Wi-Fi tower was installed across the street,
Yeah,
and
I'm sensitive to electricity, so that's like
yeah, so
a whole nother thing.
our G5s, all of our internet, our electricity, all of those things interrupt our natural energetic motion of our bodies, and so we don't,
Yeah.
and that's probably another reason why a lot of people are not sleeping is because that stuff's invisible. We have no concept that that's actually affecting us, and it is affecting us on a cellular level because those EMFs and EMRs are literally changing the structure of our cells. And so we just have, like, I don't know, we have this put your head in the sand. Like if I can't see it, then it doesn't really exist, but it does exist and it is huge. And I think it's one of the reasons why you are actually doing so much healing in the last couple of years is because you are immersed in the forest. There is less Wi-Fi where you are,
Yeah.
right?
People don't realize that it's affecting them until they're away from it, right?
Yes.
So my whole journey with this started when I was outside in the back pasture, and I had a grandfather tree. I didn't have a word for it at that time, but I had a tree that I was just drawn to, and I'd go sit underneath. And one day I was like, I had my hands on it and I could literally feel it pulsing. I'm like, how can I feel a tree pulse?
Mm-hmm.
It's weird, right? Like it wasn't me. Like I checked my pulse, I checked the tree's pulse, they weren't matched, right? And I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
feeling my pulse in my hands. I'm feeling the tree. And I had an aunt who was who was like, who had been years and years along on her healing journey already, and she read books and she was into energy healing. And so like I had that source in my life even before I met you, right? I was talking to her about it one day, and she said, "Oh, that's called grounding." So then I went down the whole rabbit hole of grounding and figured out what that was. And the first thing I did was I took an electrical cord and I stripped off both ends. And there's different ways you could do it. So I can't remember if this. I think this might have been in the winter or like spring when the ground was still frozen. So like I some houses your kitchen sink pipes are grounded somehow. Don't ask me how. I don't know how. So like my kitchen sink was at exact opposite end of my bed. So like I wrapped the one end around my kitchen sink. I wrapped the other end around my ankle, and I slept, and I was having terrible, terrible night sweats at that time and nightmares and sleep paralysis, and it was just gnarly, right? And I slept and like this is just so bizarre. So and my aches and pains started going away. So I've tried a few different things. Being low income, I've had to try free things. So I tried all the free things, but I'd say the most profound healing that I've ever had was from getting my soul pieces back. And we first did that for my 40th birthday, I think. We went out to the Petroforms. Yeah, over the last 4 years, you've gotten, I don't know, 5 or 6 pieces back, I think. And the last soul piece came back around May 9th of this year. And, you know, Carol came out of her journey and she says, "Well, I've never had a journey like that." And you actually say that to me a lot when you're working with me, like, "Oh, that's a new experience." And like, and she said, "I got your last soul piece back today." I was like, "What?" "Well, I got your last." "Are you serious? Like, I'm whole now?" I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And I felt different. I have felt so different from that time. Like living life as a whole woman. I don't even have words for that either. You
Yeah.
know, so like now, you know, when something works for you, you just want to go tell everyone to go do that, right? So like I'm telling everyone I know, you have to go get your soul pieces back because it's so profound, because we're all walking around as fragmented human beings, and I did not realize how profound and how life changing and life altering it would be to live as a whole being for the first time, probably since I was 5.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll share with the listeners right now because many of them probably don't know what that means, having your soul pieces come back. Um, so basically, what happens through life and our experiences, there are essences, breadcrumbs, fracturing of our soul that happens during like a huge event, traumatic time, but it also can happen over time where if there's repetitive type of um, abuse or and that could be mental or physical or emotional abuse or just there, what, it doesn't even have to be that dramatic, but through time, through our life, there are pieces of us that leave. And what that means is that whatever is the experience that we're having in the moment, if the soul feels unsafe, then it will escape. And it literally, like, and I'm not talking about your whole soul because obviously you wouldn't be alive if the whole piece, but there are fractures, like piece that's like shards of the glass, if you will, that are going, "Oh, I'm not hanging out for that." And that piece that has escaped, if you will, is like super duper happy. It's joyful, it's blissful, it's the happy piece because it didn't want to stay in whatever is that low frequency experience that you're having. And through life, we have many of those scenarios. And so we come to a point in our healing journey where we recognize that, you know what, I can't seem to get any better. I still am exhausted. I'm tired. I feel like there's parts of me missing. And there
Well,
are.
how many times have I told you I just don't feel whole? I don't
Yeah.
feel whole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so a
something's
soul
missing.
retrieval then is a shamanic journey that I take a client on, and we go looking with the guides. The guides are the ones doing the work. I have a very specific guide, and they go hunting for your soul pieces that have been lost. And we make sure that we're bringing the right piece back. And there's different ways in which we do that, and we make sure we have a conversation with that soul piece, and we want to make sure that they're ready to come back. And our client needs to be ready to come back, to have it come back. And then it is brought back to the person. And then we have to integrate that soul retrieval, that piece that's come back. And integration is like what I call home play. It's like, okay, well, if that was your 5-year-old self and that 5-year-old likes to ride her tricycle, then you're going to have to find a way to play, like to make sure that she's happy, and make sure that she's welcome. Or maybe that 10-year-old loves horseback riding. Well, your 40-year-old self might need to go hang out with horses for a while, or even go horseback riding. Like, there are just different ways in which we integrate those soul pieces. And then eventually all of them come back. And so if we look at our life as a chandelier and there's 100 light bulbs on our chandelier, we may at some point realize that 50 of them are burnt out and 50 of them are lit, and we're just not feeling whole. Eventually we bring back all those pieces, and now our chandelier is back to 100 light bulbs lit up. And it makes a huge difference in our life force energy. And so I just wanted to share that for our listeners who are going, Molly, what are you talking about?
Yes, go get a soul retrieval.
Yeah.
Go get a soul retrieval, or 5 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing what uh shamanic therapies can do. I find it's a gentle medicine. I don't know if it's gentle for you as a practitioner, but for someone who is on the receiving end of it, it's very gentle and non-invasive and non-intrusive, and you don't need to bring up your trauma. That's what I really appreciated about it. I don't need to relive my trauma. I don't need to get triggered. You
Mm-hmm.
go into my body somehow and remove what's ready to be removed, and then I'm healed.
Yeah, yeah. It is beautiful work. And I want to end with sharing with our listeners that, you know, uh, as incredible as your whole journey is, your epic heroine journey of embracing your healing through the years, you are now at a point where you're really looking to serve. And what is in alignment for you is shamanic work as well, because it has been such a huge thing for you. And you're about to embark on some pretty exciting stuff. Do you want to just share for a few moments?
Oh, if you could see how big I'm smiling right now. Oh, I just exclaimed and my old dog just jumped up. I'm so excited. I'm like smiling from ear to ear. I'm scared as shit, but oh my goodness, things are just batshit crazy. But I'd still have a hard time processing it. Yeah, and I love the whole cascade effect. Like, Carol has helped me heal myself, and I'm going to go on to help others heal themselves, and they will go on to heal others, or to help others heal themselves. And I just love the cascade effect. And like, the self-love journey that I've been on is just amazing, and I want to help other women how learn how to love themselves, because that's the bottom line. The bottom line that I've really learned over the past 3 months, it's everything's about love. Everything, no matter what, it's all about love.
Beautiful. And I think that's a wonderful way to end our conversation today. So, Molly, thank you so much for sharing sacred space with us today. I know as a truth that many of our listeners will really be inspired by the incredible journey that you've been on, and where you are in the present moment. It gives hope. It's inspirational. It's encouraging. There's just so much medicine in all of it. So thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. And I am sure we're going to have you again. So before we sign off completely, is there any last piece of wisdom or anything that you want to share with our listeners today?
I went from someone who tried to commit suicide twice to someone who is sitting here now today, laughing, feeling joy, feeling the sun on my face. I still have an incredibly messy life. I still have some pretty big dramas happening in my life that occasionally, border onto trauma territory. But I'm sitting here and I'm loving myself and I'm feeling gentle. I'm feeling gentle towards myself. I'm feeling gentle towards the people that have caused this drama and trauma. I I feel such gratitude and love. So just keep going. Like, to all of you who are suffering, I actually know what it feels like to suffer for years and years and years and years, and to the point where you think you need to die.
Going and love yourself. Find a way to love yourself.
Yeah, find a way to love yourself. It all starts with gratitude. Find one gratitude once a day, and then maybe find two gratitudes twice a day. And then all of a sudden, one day you'll wake up and you'll be able to look at yourself in the mirror. And instead of saying, I hate you, you piece of shit, you'll say, oh my goodness, I am so in love with you. I am living a beautiful life. And I expect so many more amazing things to come.
Well, you heard it from Molly. Thank you so much. Those are big, incredible wisdom words. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And for all our listeners, we look forward to sharing a sacred space with you again. Aho.